Hi, my name is Jake, and I am a bookish drummer. So for this video, I'm going to be ranking the Witcher series. For those who don't know what the Witcher series is about, it's essentially about a guy named Geralt who is a Witcher, and that essentially means that he is a monster hunter. And in this series, he is bound by destiny with some of the other main characters, Dandelion, Ciri, and Yennefer. The series kicks off with two short story collections, The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny. And then from there, that's where the main series starts, and it's 5 books in total. Blood of Elves, Time of Contempt, Baptism of Fire, Tower of Swallows, and finally, Lady in the Lake. There is also a prequel novel called Season of Storms. I read this series a couple years ago, and it quickly became one of my favorite fantasy series. And I also really liked the Netflix show, which got a little bit of mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed it. I feel like most people get into the books from the video game, but I've actually never played the video game, so when I first read the books, it was a little bit jarring because I didn't really have any frame of reference, but I still loved it anyway. Anyway, let's jump right into it. At my number 8 spot, we have the prequel novel, Season of Storms. And while this is my least favorite Witcher book, I still gave it 4 stars, which just goes to show you how much I really enjoyed the series. I think there's a couple reasons why it's my least favorite. Probably the number one reason is because I read it just after I had finished Lady of the Lake, and I kind of read the whole series in like the course of a few months. And by that time, I think I was just experiencing Witcher burnout. But also just the fact that it's a prequel novel kind of means that the main characters aren't in real danger, because since it takes place before the main series, like, you're reading it knowing that everyone's going to survive, so there's no real sense of danger. It's also structured very differently than all of the previous Witcher books, which makes sense because it was written years after Sapkowski wrote the rest of the series. But it has like 20 chapters and like lots of different interludes, whereas most of the books have like 7 to 10 chapters. Maybe I'll enjoy it more when I reread it later this year. And for my number 7 pick, Blood of Elves, which is the first book in the main series. The reason why this book is so low on the list is pretty simple, because I really loved the short story collections, as you'll see once we get further down in the list. This book was written a bit differently because Geralt, I won't say he takes like a back seat, but you get a lot more different perspectives, whereas in the first 2 books, the short story collections, it's essentially all Geralt. And the way Sapkowski writes in this book can be very jarring, because a lot of the times it's just pages and pages of dialogue and you're not quite sure who's speaking. But after a while I got used to it, and I did give it 4 stars. This one will be interesting to see how much more I like it the second time, knowing all that I know from reading the whole series. And my number 6 pick is Lady of the Lake, the last book in the main series. The reason why this book is so low on the list is not because it's a bad book, obviously. I gave it 4 stars, just like the previous 2 books. The main reason is that it's a lot longer than the rest of the series. Most of the books have like 7, 8, maybe 10 chapters. This book has like 12, and they're all very long. And there's one chapter, or maybe even 2 in particular, that I just flat out didn't like. But of course, most of the book was great. And the ending, while people have mixed feelings about it, I liked it. It's not a squeaky clean ending. Nothing's really kind of definitive. And a lot of fans kind of speculate as to what exactly happened. And I think that makes sense for a series like this, where kind of morality with all of the characters is very gray. I don't think it would have fit The Witcher style if it just kind of had kind of like a stereotypical fantasy ending where, you know, the good guys triumph and the bad guys are defeated. It makes more sense this way, and I like it. This next pick for my number 5 spot might be a little controversial. Most people would put it way down at the bottom, but I really enjoyed it, and it's Book 2, Time of Contempt. I actually gave this book 4.5 stars, so I liked it just slightly more than the previous books that I mentioned. I think one of the main reasons people don't like this book is that there's a chapter near the end that's very weird, very kind of like lucid, and it can be kind of hard to follow, or people just think it's boring, but I really enjoyed it. It also has kind of a slower build-up, which probably fans don't like as much, but the ending is crazy, and there's lots of action, lots of death, lots of carnage, which I would imagine fans of the Witcher series would like. And number 4 on this list is Book 4 in the series, Tower of Swallows. This book follows mainly from a certain character's point of view, which I can't really say because some people would consider that a spoiler. I love when a book can really create like a crystal clear image of what's happening on the page in my mind. And in this book, there's certainly a lot of scenes like that, especially the very end of the book that takes place on a frozen lake. That scene is awesome. And number 3 on the list is The Last Wish, which is the first short story collection in the series. As far as like introductory books into a series, it's one of the best. And I actually really think that's a very clever way to introduce a fantasy world is through short stories. Even though most people, I guess, would probably prefer novels, I'm a huge fan of short stories, so I really appreciated it. And like I said, when I read this book, I had never played the video games. I had watched a friend of mine play it before, but I didn't really pay attention to the story. I just liked the fact that this guy named Geralt was going around killing a bunch of monsters. But each story kind of introduces you to new characters, new players in the game, new settings, new creatures, and you slowly get used to the world. Not to mention that for all of the short stories in here, I think there's about 6 or 7 of them, they're all very well paced and they all have very good payoffs. And my number 2 favorite Witcher book, Baptism of Fire, Book 3 in the main series. I think for most fans of Witcher, this is probably their go-to book. I'd say this is probably a fan favorite, which makes perfect sense because you get a lot of Geralt in this book, and you get introduced to many great characters. I think as far as the main series go, this is easily the best book in the 5-book main series. Easy 5 stars. I think Sapkowski's greatest strength as a writer is definitely his characters and writing very compelling dialogue, and this book really highlights that. It's also just a very intense and kind of heartbreaking book because the ending, it just really packs a punch. And my number 1 favorite Witcher book of all time, hands down, Sword of Destiny, the second short story collection. Not only is this my favorite Witcher book, not only is it one of my all-time favorite fantasy books, it's just straight up one of my favorite books I've ever read. I think I liked it a little bit more than The Last Wish just because with The Last Wish, I was, still getting used to the writing style, I was still getting used to the world and the characters, but by the time I got into this book, I had already been very well versed into it. I got very comfortable with everything, and I just fell in love with it. that's how I would rank the Witcher series. Let me know down in the comments below how you would rank the series. What's your least favorite? What's your favorite? What are some books that you're kind of indifferent about? I'm actually very excited about this video because starting this month, I will be beginning my reread of The Witcher, starting with The Last Wish, of course. Anyway, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.